In this section, we're going to examine the options available for employees looking to advance in their career, as well as those looking to restart their career or pivot to a new discipline. Before we hear from Dr. Clare Walsh, who's Head of Staff Development, National Recognition of Prior Learning Project, we're going to play you another one of those videos from the Work Ready Skills campaign. This is Sophie. After that, we'll hear from Clare.
I love to see people grow. So if I can be a part of that journey and help them access their full potential, that's going to bring me joy more than anything else. My name is Sophie Mombas. I studied a diploma in learning and development, and I did that in the University of Galway. When I look at my own situation, starting a family very young, I'm not the only person doing that. All of my focus went into working and my family. There was no time for university. What RPL gives you is a foundation to start building upon. When I started working in Ireland, I really found my passion for L&D. I have worked with learning and development teams throughout multiple companies, but never had that official learning. As part of the course, one of the things that I did learn was specific skills toward like the L&D design process and really going from beginning stage to end stage. Your job within L&D is going to be make sure that the people are set up to help the business succeed in that field. From this point on, I can move into a full-time learning and development role.
So good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here and have to say first a few thanks. So very much big thank you to Enterprise Ireland and to the IUA for organising this conference, to UL for hosting us here in this beautiful setting, and of course Jonathan as well. So my name is Clare Walsh and I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about national recognition, the National Recognition of Prior Learning Project, which is part of the HCI suite of projects currently being delivered around the country in different settings. So if you have your devices to hand, you might want to just pull them out and look at hashtag RPL for Enterprise if you're on Twitter or LinkedIn. Just having a little look at that will give you some indication of the type of activities we've been engaged with our university partners. So a little bit about the scope of the project, just while you may be doing that. The project itself is sponsored by the IUA in conjunction with our second sponsor, THEA, the Technological Higher Education Association. We are a project with a large collaboration. We are involved with the 14 universities here in Ireland. So we have, if you recall the image, the map that Jennifer shared earlier on with the universities around, so that was the universities in Dublin, the TCD, UCD, move over to Kildare, MU, then move over west, we've got University of Galway, down south, UCC, and we then have the technological universities. So up in the northwest, we have ATU, we also have, moving further south, we have Technological University of the Shannon, and we also have the SATU, M2U, and I don't think I'm missing anybody, then we have DKIT in the northeast, and of course the IADT in Dún Laoghaire. So that's the extent of our project. We have 14 institutions, we have 18 collaborative partners on the ground. So that's a little bit around kind of the scope of our project and the kind of the collaborative nature that we work with. So the purpose of this particular project is really, it's threefold. If I can give you a little bit of context to RPL, RPL is not new in Ireland. It's been happening for well over 2 decades, if not longer, and we have tremendous and successful pockets of practice over that length of time, and MTU will be the leader in the field, if you like. But the purpose of this project, as you can kind of guess, is with the collaborative nature, is to really widen out from pockets of practice to embedding and streamlining RPL practice across all of our university partners. In order to do that, what we're trying to do is enhance the capacity within our HEIs to be able to do more RPL for enterprise, for example. And one of the key elements as well of the project is to also partner in and work with employers through our partners on the ground to engage in more RPL for Enterprise. And RPL for Enterprise is kind of one of our initiatives and interventions that we're designing and developing over the project lifetime. So a little bit about what RPL is. I won't dwell on this for too long, but it really is a process by which prior learning is valued. And I'll talk more about what we mean by value shortly. But prior learning is anything or learning that can be gained from not just sitting in a classroom setting that we would traditionally understand as learning, but the learning that we gain from training and work, the learning that we gain from being a volunteer in an organization, for example, or leading some social activities. We all learn from those particular experiences. We learn from different aspects of our work. So that's the type of learning that we're talking about when we talk about recognizing prior learning. So what we then argue is that RPL really is for everybody. And there's lots of discourse around RPL as being inclusive, diversity, and reaching out towards those agendas as well. So we're focused here today is on SMEs. So really getting into the SME space and RPL for Enterprise, which is one of our taglines and one of our initiatives. When we are working on this part of our project with our partners across the country, really what we're looking at is coming together in partnership to do these three key things. We're looking to give value to informal and non-formal workplace learning. So what we're talking about there in the sense of informal and non-formal are the types of training that might happen in the workspace. We're also talking around the sorts of things that might happen in your community, so recognizing those learnings. It's also a way to utilize what we call invisible learning as a bridge to work towards new learning opportunities. So being able to recognize that invisible learning and being able to work towards then getting on to qualifications. And then finally, it's about upskilling and reskilling groups of workers in their needs and to meet their needs and the needs of their organization. So really, that's the breadth and depth of our RPL for Enterprise initiative as one part of this project. So I mentioned a moment ago just about this idea of value meaning. When we talk about giving value to recognizing prior learning, what we're talking about very practically in a university setting is this idea of being able to give credit towards an award. So that would be identified in the sense of giving credit for modules. So what that means is perhaps not having to complete an entire program because recognition will be given to some modules and then you're exempt from actually studying those because the recognized prior learning says that you've achieved those learning outcomes of those particular modules. It also allows for advanced entry to a program. So moving beyond year one of a program, for example, it also, in some cases, allows for full awards. And then finally, very importantly as well, RPL can be utilised for entry to a program. And what we mean by that is maybe in some cases, the entry criteria, and we'll hear from different people on our panel in a moment, just around how maybe not having an undergraduate degree shouldn't be an impediment to gaining access to a master's, for example. So RPL allows the ability to do those sorts of things. So what's the benefit to SMEs? These 4 key points here, these are evidence-based or evidence-informed, okay? So it's not me just up here telling you all these lovely things may or could or might possibly happen. They're actually, there's evidence-based from a global perspective in the world of RPL that these sorts of, these are outcomes around utilising RPL. So feel assured as SMEs that these sorts of outcomes are realistic, they are evidence-informed. So what we say is that utilising RPL, recognition of prior learning, you can have your staff and members of your teams meet their skills needs faster. And that can be because some of that recognition of prior learning is allowing advanced entry, or it's a module exemption, for example. It widens your talent pool. And it goes back to maybe some of the comments from previous panelists that were saying, you know, there's lots of skills. And I think, Jonathan, you mentioned it earlier around maybe people in your previous organization that maybe were all in the wrong jobs. But what RPL does is allow you to widen that talent pool, because you can recognize through maybe those skills needs analysis that happen that we talked about from SkillNet earlier, or from Regional Skills Forum earlier, but also, getting people skilled across what is needed within your own organization. It also allows for the enhancement of career progression, and very importantly, this idea of retaining staff, because staff now feel more satisfied. There's more satisfaction and greater engagement. And also this notion of supporting and retaining talent, really, really important, particularly in our current climate of full employment almost, and the difficulty of recruiting staff. So these are evidence-based, evidence-informed pieces of evidence that say this is the benefit of having people utilise RPL as a process for upskilling and reskilling. Now we have a little video, so just bear with us. We'll hear from Ronan.
I'd left school. I had never been to university before, so I had no idea. I had a lot of experience in business over the last 25 years. I'm CEO of a financial services business. However, I hadn't kind of pushed myself to go further. So I sent that email, and I was actually delighted to get a response very quickly to say that they would consider my application, but that I needed to fill out a form, give them a CV of my career to date. And I happily did that. And I got a response really quickly. And I was really encouraged actually to go on to the course. And at times, I suppose I kind of doubted myself whether I could do this, because I hadn't been in college before. But to be honest with you, my experience and really enthusiasm, the right attitude to the diploma, and the encouragement I got from the university really helped me.
Lovely to hear from Ronan there. And just finally, before I wrap up things, what I would say, Quiva, if you're here today, can you maybe just put your hand up? There's Quiva. Quiva is our project contact here in University of Limerick. So if anybody in this region needs to maybe explore more about recognition of prior learning from a UL perspective, contact Quiva or myself, of course. But do remember, you may be focusing on a regional basis. So check out priorlearning.ie. We have a page there that lists all of our contacts in each of our universities. So if you want more information, do look out for the individual who's identified. Their names and email addresses are there on our website. Do check them out if you want more information. Of course, do chat to me afterwards as well. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Claire. We're going to play a video. After that, we're going to hear from David Corscadden. He's a MicroCreds Communications and Engagement Manager, but we have another student voice video to show you.
This micro-credential has widened my appetite. I'm looking at doing more in-depth study. It leaves you going, I want to do more in this. My name is Maxine Kelly. I studied Equality, Diversity and Inclusion micro-credential at Trinity College Dublin. I'm a National Volunteer Coordinator for Lacala Mentoring. It's really important for me to keep my skills up to date, particularly in the field of equality, diversity and inclusion, because things change a lot and quickly. Social policy is changing and it needs to be impacted by up-to-date research. Doing this micro-credential helped me to improve my research skills. It helped me to improve my use of language within this complex field of equality, diversity and inclusion. And it helped me to build a new skill of understanding the impact of intersectionality. I just feel like I have more of a legitimate voice to talk about these issues, to keep them on the agenda and to bring them into our work and to challenge them.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Corscadden. It was great, I think, to hear from a student about the benefit of micro-credentials. Over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to talk more from an enterprise perspective and the benefits around engaging with micro-credentials and really how our 7 partner universities have kind of come together to really create a vehicle for upskilling for enterprise. I wanted to start off by just showing this statistic from the World Economics Forum, which says that over 44% of workers' core skills are going to change over the next 5 years. So that creates a huge pool of people who are going to need upskilling. That's across all sizes of organizations, and particularly for SMEs, that's a huge amount of employees who are going to need to kind of future-proof their skills. And how we see it in MicroCreds is that micro-credentials can be a perfect vehicle for addressing these skills needs within organizations. If you're not familiar with what micro-credentials are, I have a very short video that I'm going to show you now that kind of gives you an overview of what they are and what they offer.
Education has never been more important in furthering your career and developing the skills needed to future-proof yourself. Micro-credentials are bite-sized, accredited courses offered by leading Irish universities to improve skills you already have or develop new ones in emerging areas. Micro-credentials are offered online, face-to-face, or as blended learning in short, flexible courses to work around you and your commitments. From AI to digital innovation to sustainability, courses are taught by leading academics and created in collaboration with industry. Micro-credentials can be taken as standalone courses or could be stacked into larger qualifications over time. Whether you want to upskill, reskill, or discover a skill you never knew you had, micro-credentials are a great way to stay ahead. Visit microcreds.ie today to ignite your future.
So just a kind of very short video to just give you an overview of what micro-credentials are. I suppose the MicroCreds project itself, similar to the RPL project, were funded under the Human Capital Initiative project. And our aim is to really reimagine how people engage with lifelong learning here in Ireland. And how we're doing that is through bite-sized courses or micro-credentials. The project itself has 3 or 4 core strands that we're looking to develop over the lifetime of our project. The first is that kind of national framework for micro-credentials. So creating that kind of shared understanding of what micro-credentials are and their benefits to learners. The second strand is MicroCreds Innovate, which is led out by my colleague, Dr. Emma Francis, who's in the back of the room. And that's where we're actively bringing enterprise and universities together to have kind of a meaningful kind of conversation, really constructive conversation around what are the skills that universities need to be addressing. Strand 3 is probably the most valuable for everyone here in the room and listening at home, is our national platform. So microcreds.ie, it launched earlier this year, and that's really bringing together all of the offerings from our 7 partner universities into one place, so making it much easier for people to engage in short form learning. And then strand 4 is around the actual development of the micro-credential, and that's something that we're looking to really engage with enterprise, both large enterprise and SMEs, around developing courses that are addressing the specific skills needs that you are looking to address. We are working with 7 IUA partner universities, and each of those are bringing unique academic concentrations. They're bringing in unique perspectives on sectoral and regional skills, and working with organizations around them to kind of really dive into lifelong learning and addressing the skills that they're coming across. For enterprise, a kind of key contact in each of our partner universities is the project lead, many of them who are in the room today and will be available to talk to you afterwards. And they are really kind of spearheading the project in each of their local universities. In terms of the benefits of micro-credentials for enterprise, it's very similar to some of the benefits that Clare would have spoke around RPL. And all of these are evidence-based. It's based on global research and the feedback that we're getting from enterprise as we're working with them. So micro-credentials, they're a really short form learning that can suit around the learner's needs, but also the organization's needs. So particularly for SMEs, it's very hard to give away an employee for a year to do a master's, whereas it might be more approachable and kind of easier to have a person go away in the evenings for a couple of times a week and engage with a micro-credential. We're seeing an awful lot of organizations are embedding micro-credentials into their kind of learning and development packages. So using it as tools to attract employees into their organizations, or as tools to kind of really retain staff, and that idea of kind of investing in your current staff to meet your kind of future needs. And a big thing about the MicroCreds project is that through the courses that are being developed, they're being developed by world-leading universities, so they have that quality assurance behind the learning outcomes and the skills that are being developed by the learners on the courses, which I think is a huge benefit for enterprise. one of the kind of key tools to use to engage with micro-credentials is microcreds.ie. And when we were doing our initial research around the project, one of the biggest concerns that always came back from enterprise was that they had identified a skills need that they needed to address, but they didn't know where to start in terms of finding a solution to address that skills needs. And that's what we've tried to do with microcreds.ie, is really create a shop front for people to go to engage with the course offerings from our 7 universities and make it as easy as possible to find the course that it meets your skills needs and get you straight through to the application and the admissions process. It's a website that we're looking to develop over the coming months and coming years and really turn it into a resource for enterprise when you're looking for upskilling opportunities and how to kind of address skills gaps in your organizations. We want to turn microcreds.ie into that one-stop shop for you. So we'd really welcome feedback as we start to develop it. At the moment, we have over or just around 350 micro-credential courses on offer. On the screen, you can just see a snapshot of some of them that are developed by our partner universities, and you'll see they're really focused elements of learning. So they're getting right down into kind of very focused skills, focused learning. So things around, say, introduction to supply chain management, mentoring for EDI, looking at kind of core industry needs and how can we address them in a really short form, engaging way that has tangible outputs from the courses. So they're very practical based for the learners, where they're bringing the learnings directly into enterprise as they're going through the course. I suppose as a takeaway for everyone in the room and for everyone who's watching online, I'd stress that if you do have an identified skills need, go to microcreds.ie, have a look at the courses that are available already. There may be a course there already that addresses the specific needs that you have. But equally, if you go onto the website, you don't see something that's addressing the skills needs. Our 7 partner universities are very open to collaborating with enterprises of all sizes to see how can we co-develop courses that are addressing industry or sectoral needs. And in terms of kind of starting that process, the kind of first step will be to kind of really review what are your skills needs and really engage with your employees to see what form of learning kind of is addressing their needs in terms of their personal lives that will suit in your organization as well. If a micro-credential kind of ticks all the boxes for you, we'd encourage you to kind of come to us. Our 7 partner universities are here. They'll be available outside the room. You'll also find a pink brochure on all of your seats. You'll find the contact details for all of our partners on there, and just start the conversations with our universities around how can we kind of successfully develop a course that might address your needs and really future-proof your organizations going forward. To finish up, you'll find our email address and our website up there as well. We'd encourage you to engage with us over the coming months. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, David. And thank you, Claire, of course. We're going to have our final panel now. It's about the trials and tribulations of upskilling and reskilling. Please welcome Fabian Joyce. He's the business owner of Anam Music Therapy and a former RPL enterprise learner. Fiona Keogh, who's lead of learning and development at Eli Lilly. Michael Hennessy, who's education programs manager for the Faculty of Science and Engineering here at University of Limerick. And Michelle Thompson, who's manager of strategic partnerships at SkillNet. Fabian, we might start with you because we just heard about RPL. Tell me a little bit about your background and why you chose the RPL route into university.
My story is similar to, I think it was Ronan that was in the video that Claire showed. I didn't have an undergrad. So in that sense, RPL was the only show in town for me. That was my only access to 3rd level. And thankfully, here at UL, it was quite a rigorous interview process, but having the previous education I'd done startup and introduction to psychotherapy. But I hadn't known that there was such a thing called music therapy, which is what I studied here. That was the stepping stone to it. So they recognized that I was already on the path, that perhaps this might be a better fit because music was always and is always a huge part of my life. But I didn't realize that music and science were being used together. So it was the perfect fit. And thankfully, getting through the rigorous interview got me on board.
Let's dig a bit deeper into that. You approached them and said, look, I'd love to do this course. I want to go down the RPL route. What happened next?
What happened next? I got accepted onto the course here in UL. So I think the first year that I came on board, I didn't quite appreciate how intense it was, having never been there before. So I dived.
It doesn't look like that on TV very often.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot of learning, yeah.
Dived straight in, loud, confident, and wrong, as they say. I had to defer because I was trying to juggle my previous business, which was a world away from music therapy. And I didn't appreciate just how much time it involved. So straight away, that was lesson
Punch
number
in the
one.
gut, yeah.
And thankfully, they were amazing, the director and lead on the music therapy course. And they allowed me to defer, to come back. So 2018, got through it and learned, I think, valuable skills. And we couldn't have known what was coming in 2020. So I think, like Vish, he mentioned that he qualified, graduated just in time for COVID. Similar story for myself. And honestly, if I had not learned the skills that I had learned on that course, I'm not sure I would have got through COVID quite, I won't say easily or smoothly, but it definitely made that whole experience much more manageable because I would have learned a lot of things like humility, vulnerability, and I think the confidence to accept mistakes, confidence to know that that's where the richest learning is. But yeah, I think in today's terms, we're talking a lot about business, but our focus is the humanistic, and we're person-centered. So your health, we can have the best business in the world, but if we don't have the health and the mental health, the emotional resilience, I think was one of the biggest takeaways I took from it to get through.
And in terms of your business, how did it change the business that you provide? I mean, obviously COVID, you'd imagine a lot of people required therapy during it, after it. I mean, did the course you learn give you an opportunity to start a new business or work in a business that is very much within music therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. So what COVID offered us was, and again, I think it's using the skill set that we learned, turning the difficulties into enablers or opportunities. So we sat down on Zoom, we learned how to do that thing, and we picked a business model that would suit us, our needs and societal needs. So we've gone with a social enterprise model, and we're growing and in the middle of applying to be Ireland's first national music therapy charity. So that's not something that I would have ever dreamed of prior to RPL, or wouldn't have even been on my radar.
Okay.
So the skill set learned through RPL, definitely. And the old adage, one door opens another. Thankfully, UL opened the door to me here through the RPL scheme. And so many more doors have opened since. And will continue to do so, because it's trust in the gut, having the confidence to know that we're on the right path and embracing the mistakes. I think I've learned the humility of making mistakes, because that's where the richest learning is.
Yeah.
But also to know you can't do it all. And that would have been maybe in my previous management roles in construction, that you're trying to manage one thing too many. Can't do it all. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
No, and I think a good manager
Catches
will
up
always
with you
know
eventually, doesn't it?
yeah, they'll know their weaknesses.
Yeah.
So just having the humility to embrace that as well.
Brilliant. Fiona, we heard a lot about micro-credentials earlier from David, but what can you tell me about your involvement from enterprise at Eli Lilly?
So I've been involved with MicroCreds with the team here at UL for quite some time now, to really figure out how we can bring it into industry. And when we think about that and bringing it into industry, it's thinking about the learner first and foremost. So a lot of people will have a perception that, you know, if you go and do continuing education or go back to lifelong learning, there's only real value in a full award. So you have to really sort of create an excitement around microcreds insofar that employees see the value of obtaining a microcred. But equally so, you've got to challenge the mindset of the organization to embrace that thinking as well. So where do they see the value of a microcred in terms of career progression? Because ultimately we're all trying to upskill, and we all want to, I suppose, upskill our employees to take advantage of career development opportunities as they arise. So that's kind of my involvement to date. I think it's hugely important as well in terms of the employer's employer value proposition. So in terms there, and it's been mentioned earlier on around attraction and retention. So we want to attract new employees to the organization, but we want to be able to sell the idea of lifelong learning, but actually mean it. And I think for employees in the organization, it's critical that they can see a pathway to development. And for me, it's about understanding the micro-credentials, but being able to integrate them into our existing programs. So like our grad programs, like our leadership development programs, and really sort of reinforce the value of that type of learning.
What sort of micro-credential offers or courses are on offer for employees at Eli Lilly?
It's so broad, and from an Eli Lilly perspective, we're just ramping up in Limerick. So we're about to open our new site in the coming months. So the focus for us is really on identifying, well, what are the current skills and what are the future skills that we will need to, I suppose, be in ramp state and then get to steady state as well. So currently looking at what will enhance in terms of our graduate program, our leadership development programs, but equally so around supply chain resilience and things like that.
How much emphasis or how much value does leadership put on these micro creds? Because by their very nature, they are short. It's not like you're getting someone with a master's in a particular or years of experience in something. How are they perceived within the organization? Are they perceived as really valuable courses, or are they seen as a little tick to the CV?
You know, it's probably a bit of both, if you're to be really, really honest. But I think as well, it's how you integrate it into development. Because if you think about the learner today, they don't really have time for learning. There's very little time allowed.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be done in a way that is integrated into what they're already doing. And if you look at the 70-20-10 model in terms of learning, you know, that 10% formal micro-credential piece is a very small piece of the overall puzzle. So how do you create that ultimate learning experience by leveraging all of those other things as well?
Okay, very good. And how does a company like the organizations here in this room, how do they do something like what you've done? So SMEs obviously don't have the resources of Eli Lilly.
Yeah.
How can they, you know, sort of take advantage of the micro-credential program, do you think?
Yeah, it's funny, you know, it's the type of thing that's likely to induce heartburn. I think, you know, we start thinking about it, it's a bit like going into Dunn's in August and seeing selection boxes. You know, you kind of get panicked. And because everybody else is doing it, you think you should be doing it too, which is never a good place to be. So I think, you know, as an organization, if you're doing the fundamentals really, really well, that's a great starting point. But I think you have to empower your learners as well to be responsible for their own development, because at times you don't know what you don't know. So I think encouraging learners to get out there, get networking, get to benchmarking events, and try to figure out what the likely gaps are and what are the things that they need to be successful in their roles. After that, I think you need to call Joe Ledden. I think you need to call Emer Brophy. You need to figure out who the network is. Now, we're really lucky in the Midwest region because we have a fantastic, just a bubble of everything going on in terms of this. And I think from my own perspective, and it doesn't matter if it's a big organization or a small organization, we all have the same challenges. And I think from a learning and development department perspective, we are all under-resourced. It's one of the most under-resourced functions, but the most important function, I think, in every organization. So I think it's about leveraging what's out there, not reinventing the wheel, and then figuring out how can you adopt that to suit what you're doing.
And like, are there things that SMEs should be doing to get the most out of those engagements? I mean, forgetting about just MicroCreds, it sounds like your engagement with the UL is a very active one.
Yeah.
Are there things that people are doing that might be missing a trick?
Yeah, you know, I think you have to give the time to this. I think you have to be intentional. It's important. People development is really, really important. And I think it has to be on the agenda. So it has to be given time. But I think as well, once you engage, it's very hard to get back out of it because they don't let you back out of it. You know, once you're in, you're in. And I think it's fantastic to be able to pick up the phone to organizations across the Midwest region, the length and breadth of the country, and people want to help. They want to kind of help you to be successful. And that's definitely the vibe that I get here in this industry. And I myself would find it very difficult to do what I do without the support of everything that's going on in that region. So one of the best things I've done is to get out there, figure out who's who, and those relationships have been invaluable.
Michael, you're Education Programs Manager for the Faculty of Science and Engineering here at UL, but you have a lot of experience across the board. What are the most effective initiatives or programs that SMEs could be using to get the most out of universities?
I would definitely sign up for Joe Ledden, the regional skills across the country. The regional skills, they are trawling. They're putting out everything that's there. So it's important to do that. But also watch out, there's huge funding there. Through Springboard for upskilling people, through skill nets. So as Fiona was saying, as an individual SME, you're watching your product mix and your service delivery for the next 5 years, hopefully, to stay in business. So that's giving you an idea of what skills are missing. Skill nets networks are out there offering training and education to meet those needs. So you can take your micro-credential. There is the opportunity of working through that in the whole micro-credentials area to look at, we're doing a training on X system. You might have Red Hat cybersecurity or something like some professional qualifications. With the micro-credentials, there's an opportunity to match that and get ECTS credits for it, so that you have a professional qualification on one side and an education qualification on the other side. You're engendering a curiosity in your staff to say, oh, yeah, I can do the professional qualifications, but academia is not for me. You've shown them that it is. Yeah. If they can step up, then take another micro-credential. You can pick ones. You can say, we want everyone to do the introduction to cybersecurity so that everybody will know about the issues, or we want everyone to do an introduction to supply chain management, or equality, diversity, and inclusion, because of whatever skills, as the slide deck said, 40% of skills are going to be out in date in 5 years. So you have 5 years to cover all of those with micro-credentials.
Yeah.
And
I hadn't thought about getting a whole company, if it's in a particular industry, to do an introduction to what that industry is about, so everyone is on the same page at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an opportunity there.
Talk to me about Generation Apprentice. What is it?
Generation Apprenticeship is the other side of the government, the national focus on employability and employment. So traditionally we have our craft apprentices, the trades, we're familiar with those, but there are nearly more. There's about 80 apprenticeships now, 25 of them are the traditional apprenticeships. So there is a slew of new types of skills development, and it's very much skills development in a kind of education sense. So there's always going to be a domain, I want to be an engineer, I'll go do engineering, or I want to do business, I'll go and do business in college. But you get into the workforce and then you discover, it's laboratory technician that I'm interested in, or it's insurance practitioner, or it's supply chain manager, that you're going to be developed for a very specific role and develop a specific set of skills to develop while you're working or just before you start. So that's a whole new range. And then it is exceptionally well funded. It's geared towards the organization. It's all flexible delivery. So if there is, apprenticeships.ie, if there's anything on there that you're interested in that will help your organization or SME grow, should be investigated.
I've been speaking to a couple of people in the panel, and it seems like a lot of the resources, a lot of the funding here seems to be underused, that there is some of these programs where there's, an oversupply of funding. Is that the case in apprenticeships?
There is. We're very lucky in that the economy is booming, so all of the contribution that people make through their payroll taxes is stockpiling. It's building up. It's being spent. So there is, I suppose there is an oversupply. We can't get enough people to take the training that's available, and it comes, right down for, digital skills for the older employee.
Yeah.
With no qualifications, right up to John and J&J doing a doctoral program as an apprentice. So there is something there for everyone.
That's interesting, because I suppose it's not something that any department really wants to say, that we have loads of money, but it seems to be the vibe is that there's lots of opportunities if you want to engage with universities, if you want to upskill your talent, if you're an SME or an enterprise. It seems like there are lots of very valuable, Giles mentioning that, graduates, hiring graduates, that opportunity for 50% or 70% if there's a language requirement. That is an amazing opportunity for a business if they find the right graduate. Is that you were kind of nodding along there? Is that your sort of sense, Fiona?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I would fully agree.
Yeah.
Michael said, yeah.
Let's go to you now, please, Michelle. Michelle is Manager of Strategic Partnerships at SkillNet. Tell me a little bit about SkillNet, how it works at universities, and what it is you do.
Yeah. So for a bit of context, SkillNet Ireland is the workforce development agency of Ireland. So it was an initiative that was kind of sprung out of government and industry and enterprise. And we were established in 1999, so it'll be 25 years next year. And the idea was to ensure that there was the upskilling and training supports there for Irish businesses to help them stay competitive. And so we do this, we have 70 SkillNet business networks nationwide. So they are either sectorally based or regionally based. And we have several national talent programs which look at key skills areas of strategic importance. So innovation, sustainability, which is a hot topic, and SME leadership and innovation. And those sectoral skill nets and our national talent programs are very much connected in with the relevant industry bodies, and our regional skill net networks are closely connected in and affiliated with the Chamber of Commerce. So it's really created that network effect that you were talking about in the community to make sure that that voice of industry and voice of enterprise is really met by our skills needs. And so I think that's what's hugely valuable to universities as well. And so we've had a very long-standing partnership with universities and work with them in a broad range of ways. A few figures at the moment, I think, would be that we're currently supporting maybe 4,300 workers to engage with the higher education institutions, over 300 programs, and our SkillNet business networks are working with over 20, maybe 24 of the universities. So yeah, it's a really close working relationship, and it's a very broad range of what they do. It can be anything from research into understanding future skills needs, which I think in this very fast changing world is really important.
Yeah.
As well as financial support to help them attend programs that currently exist, and probably in that exciting space to work really collaboratively with universities on program co-creation where they see new opportunities.
Yeah, how does that work, the co-creation with between universities, yourselves, and industry?
Yeah, so I think what's really important to remember is that we are still very core to our purpose of why we're set up, which is to be enterprise led. So we're very much, market pull, not product push. So to add a little bit more color to it, our SkillNet business networks and programs don't directly own or deliver our upskilling programs. We actually try to engage really closely with the businesses, enterprise and industry to understand their needs first. And so based on that deep understanding of what skills they're looking to fill, we then go and scan the market, see what's there, procure it, and then offer it to the companies at a subsidy to make it a lot more accessible to them. And so I think that's kind of, by listening to those member networks, we can see what needs they have. Through that network that we talked about, we can kind of actually identify patterns of where there's a need. But I think what's really exciting is that we can start to see gaps then in the market where there isn't skills provision in that space, and that's quite exciting. So that's where we can kind of see an opportunity to partner with the university and kind of and look in that area. And how that happens then, it would be a network manager or a program manager reaching out through the contacts that we already have. They bring the idea. They bring, importantly, the funding, because it can be a costly. So we want to make this as easy as possible for everyone. So the idea, the funding, and then really importantly is that in working with the universities, we try and keep our industry and enterprise and businesses really closely involved so that it remains relevant and practical, and we're keeping that voice of enterprise right at the forefront of that program co-creation. There's lots of examples across the networks. To name just a few, our Technology Ireland ICT SkillNet has worked with MTU, NUI Galway, I couldn't even mention the name of them, in a range of master's programs around blockchain, cybersecurity, a lot of the technologies that are at the forefront of our economies at the moment. Our SkillNet Climate Academy has partnered here with UL on the first stackable microcred in sustainability space, which is really exciting. And I'm just even thinking, when you were talking, Fiona, Eli Lilly, our biopharmachem SkillNet was working with a number of programs in that space, and came across a common need with yourselves and AbbVie and a number of others, which was very exciting again to see that collaboration between industry, and created a program, and I hope I pronounce it properly, which was around aseptic training in the biopharma manufacturing space around VR. So really, really exciting. Lots of very cool stuff happening between our networks and the universities.
Very cool. Do we have questions in the room or questions online? Please raise your hand or send them into the Q&A and we'll get them to our panel. We're running out of time, but I have one question for you, Michael. You used RPL in your work with companies like Johnson & Johnson, right? How does that work? What's it like?
Yes. What we did with them was they were looking to upskill put a number of people onto a program that we have. But one of the modules that was on the program was project management, and they had already done a project management institute program. So we looked at that program versus what the learning outcomes were on ours, and they matched. So we said, okay, we'll recognize prior learning there. They don't have to do the modules, so it reduced the length of time for the participants. And then it was also participants were able to say that their PMI module was equivalent to a university module as well.
Right. Yeah.
So it worked quite well.
And do you find that generally there is good appreciation within industry for the RPL path?
There is. The most common method is for entry. And you know what I mean, the majority of course directors looking at people to bring them onto a program is not whether they meet the criteria, but they have the motivation and they have the interest, and that they'll get out the other end.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And develop the skills. So there's a good appreciation of the possibilities through RPL. I think the whole concept of learning outcomes has really made that something that can be discussed more clearly, rather than a program being X. A program is a series of learning outcomes. If you can meet them, then join, or you have the skill set.
Very good. One word from each of you, perhaps, to our audience here in the room and at home, in terms of how to best get the most out of your relationship with your university. Might start with you, Fabian.
Clarity, I think, around what you want. What is your ask?
Very clear on what your goal is, very clear on what you want out of it, and the rest will follow.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Michael?
I would say clarity and pick up the phone or send an email. Start a discussion. It will send you to the right people. And you don't have to hit the nail on the head straight off.
Very good. Fiona?
I would say be curious and intentional.
Okay.
In equal measures.
I said final word. I didn't realize you were going to be very, very specific. Just one word. Very good, but that's good for my timing. I've got to be honest with you. Michelle?
I would say collaboration and communication. I think that reaching out piece is very important. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So just talk to lots of supports out there.
Well, thank you very much to our panel. Do we have any questions to the floor before I wrap it? 3, 2, 1, gone. Big round of applause for our panel, please.